At least 33 Canadian churches were burned to the ground in the past year and a half, and only 2 of them were accidents, and here's why. Most of the fires were set deliberately, and investigators say it was likely connected to the recent discovery of unmarked graves at residential schools. The schools were run by Catholic churches and Catholic missionaries, and many believe that the churches are now being burnt down due to unresolved anger.
100 churches across Canada have been burned down over the last couple years because Indigenous people believe that their children were buried under these churches. An Indigenous people group in Saskatchewan claimed that hundreds of children were buried under these Catholic schools, but excavations that were carried out last year did not turn up any evidence of these bodies, but the churches were burned anyways. You can see here at this Catholic school that they have all of this graffiti on there saying, "Dig them up and shame on you and go home." The reason for this retaliation against the Catholic schools is because beginning in the early 19th century, tens of thousands of Native American children were taken from their families and placed at residential boarding schools in Canada, where unfortunately they were abused. Now, not every single site where they think children were buried has been excavated, but it seems like the whole idea was exaggerated because they have not found nearly as many bodies as they thought they would. It's very likely that the social media hysteria is what caused the problem. Here is a map of the total of 96 churches across Canada and also over here that were burned down because of this. Now, I'm no expert on Indigenous people and their history, but you guys let me know what your thoughts are on this.
No, they don't. No, they don't. Nobody was caught in those arson fires in the churches on reservations, which just mysteriously happened after they started finding unmarked graves in old residential school sites. So I find that an awful strange coincidence. And yeah, no. No, if you ask me, that was the churches covering their ass. Because think of what the documents might have been found in there if they hadn't been burned. Just think about it. Here's your brain. Follow the money.
And Alberta this week announced that it's going to be doubling its funding to help protect churches from vandalism and violence. But the Federal Security Infrastructure Program stopped taking applications last November. I know that there is new funding in the budget, so when will the program start taking applications again? And if I may, as a Catholic, what's your reaction that houses of your faith are being targeted for the church's role in the residential school system?
As you know, Ashley, we have put in place a security infrastructure program that partners with places of worship to be able to put in cameras and security systems to keep those institutions safe from what is unfortunately a rise of intolerance and racism and hatred that we're seeing across the country. And certainly we will continue to roll out those funds in partnership with community centers, religious institutions, and others that need that protection. As I've also said, it is unacceptable and wrong that acts of vandalism and arson are being seen across the country, including against Catholic churches. One of my reflections is I understand the anger that's out there against the federal government, against institutions like the Catholic Church. It is real and it is fully understandable given the shameful history that we're all becoming more and more aware of and engaging ourselves to do better as Canadians. But I can't help but think that burning down churches is actually depriving people who are in need of grieving and healing and mourning from places where they can actually grieve and reflect and look for support. We shouldn't be lashing out at buildings that can provide solace to some of our fellow citizens, but we should be every day committing ourselves, each and every one of us, to the hard work we need to do to actually rebuild a path forward that reflects the terrible intergenerational trauma and present-day realities of suffering that we are all collectively responsible for.
Hey guys, so I wanted to talk about what is happening in terms of the burning churches now that we have started to find more and more unmarked graves of Indigenous children at residential schools. I wanted to make this very clear. Indigenous peoples and their allies are not the people burning down the churches. More likely than not, it is their own members, and that is killing two birds with one stone. In the burning of churches, the people are trying to vilify Indigenous communities and ultimately justify the genocide against their people. And with that, they are attempting to justify so many things, including the mistreatment of Native peoples in terms of not giving them enough food, enough water, and the MMIW crisis. And second, they are trying to hide evidence and records of the names of the Indigenous children who are buried in those unmarked graves, making it much more difficult to bring their bodies back home to their families. So please do research, sign petitions, go help with GoFundMes, and if you hear about another burning church, just know that it's not the Indigenous peoples, and they're probably trying to use it to vilify them.
I don't understand why you idiots decide that you're gonna post this garbage. Don't post this shit on my friggin' videos. It's lies. You're a garbage potato, and shut up.
Oops, my heart went oops, I never will forget My heart went